All right, everyone. Thank you as you're logging in. We're going to begin in just a second. And our panelists on the line, are you guys still there?
Yes.
All right. You're unmuted right now, so you know.
Thank you.
So this is Caitlin Coleman with the Colorado Foundation for Water Education. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar tutorial on using Colorado's Decision Support Systems, or CDSS. The program complements the new content in our summer 2017 issue of Headwaters magazine, which is focused on water data, with a look at how data informs water decisions, the push for more open and accessible water data, and an introduction to how the next statewide water supply initiative is collecting and using data in new ways to inform the next round of state water planning. You can find the magazine and learn more about us at yourwatercolorado.org. Before we begin, I have just a couple of housekeeping notes. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Colorado Water Conservation Board. We wouldn't be able to offer this webinar at a low cost without their support. Next, I'd like to thank our wonderful speakers. Today, we'll hear from 3 experts who are the ones sharing and helping to manage the state's water data. We have Andy Moore with the Colorado Water Conservation Board, as well as John Rogers and Chris Brown with the Colorado Division of Water Resources. The webinar will last for about an hour. As attendees, you'll be muted throughout the presentation. But if you have questions, please type them into the questions pane in your GoToWebinar toolbar, which should be on the side of your screen. Our presenters may check periodically and might answer your questions throughout the presentation, but we'll allow about 15 or 10 minutes at the end of the webinar to address any unanswered questions, and we'll try to get through all of them. We'll read those aloud so our speakers can respond. Also, the webinar is being recorded and should be available later this week for your reference, or you may receive it next week. If you have any technical questions during the webinar, you can try to ask a question and chat with me, or you can email my colleague Jenny Gertz at jennie@yourwatercolorado.org. And that is all for now, so let's launch into the topic at hand. We have this great resource in Colorado's decision support systems, and all kinds of data that DWR collects in administering Colorado's water. So let's learn what tools are really available and how we can use them best, and what new improvements are coming down the line. So we're joined by our 3 panelists today. They're all in one room together. First, we'll have Andy Moore, a water resources engineer with the Colorado Water Conservation Board, who will kick things off with an introduction to CDSS. Then we'll hear from Chris Brown, DWR's GIS specialist, who will walk us through the map viewer, and John Rogers, DWR's HydroBase coordinator, who will introduce some other CDSS tools and give us a preview of what new and improved tools we can look forward to. Andy, want to start us off?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, click that.
There, we can
see my screen up
now. Yes.
Okay, great. This is Andy Moore with CWCB. I'm just going to give a quick overview of CDSS because, of course, the main goal of this webinar is to show you different ways to access all the data in CDSS. But CDSS has been going on for 25 years. It's a joint effort of CWCB and the Division of Water Resources with the goal of getting all the water resources data in one place, having that comprehensive database, which is HydroBase, which you'll hear more about here in this presentation. But CDSS also includes quite a few analytical tools and models for planning purposes, in some cases administration. Just a quick overview of those tools. One of the main data management interfaces that we have is the TS tool, or time series tool. And it is very powerful for looking at all the data in HydroBase if you're a power user and doing modeling. So look that up on our website if you're interested in that, and let us know if you have any questions. Of course, after the webinar, you can contact us. State CO is the consumptive use model, and we've developed this for every basin in the state, except the Arkansas, where we're beginning the decision support system in the Arkansas basin now. State mod is a water resources planning model that we have also developed in the Western Slope, and we've just recently finished a state mod model for the South Platte. And we have a couple of mod flow models in the state too that we've developed through the decision support systems. And all of these models, the data sets and documentation are available at the DSS site. You see the web link there at the bottom. Again, that's one of the keys is we make all of our information and our models available free on our website. Whether you go through DSS or the DWR site, you can find all of this information. This schematic gives just an overview of DSS with HydroBase again as the center. One of the things with our models is that they're strongly data centered. When we update the models, which we do every 3 to 5 years, we pull all the new, HydroBase is updated very frequently, and then every 3 to 5 years we'll update the models with the new data in HydroBase to extend the period of record in the models. And again, those models are all available on the website. There's quite a bit of data available on HydroBase, and you can see that at the upper left-hand side, and of course we'll go into that more in the presentation. And at the bottom, the 3 boxes show the focus of this presentation. The map viewer, the Colorado Information Marketplace, and also the online data tools on the DSS side where you can do queries. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Brown from the Division of Water Resources.
All right, just give me a second here to get my window up. The first thing I would like to talk about is our data that we have on the Colorado Information Marketplace, which is located at data.colorado.gov. As you can see here, when you type in data.colorado.gov, this is a sort of a catch-all for data around Colorado. A number of agencies have put information up here. Some of it is static, some of it is refreshed manually. And as you'll see down here in the lower right-hand corner, water has its own tab. And if you click on that tab, it'll take you to the water page, which basically has a number of different data sets that are updated, in some cases, nightly, from HydroBase, our main database that Andy mentioned. For example here, right at the top of the list here, we have a data set called Water Rights Net Amounts. What this is, and if we click on this, and this is just showing to highlight a number of different ways that we disseminate data through the CDSS program and at the Division of Water Resources. And as you can see, the last update for this was August 31st. And if you click the Explore Data tab and say View Data, what this is going to do is basically open up a live spreadsheet of, in particular, this data related to water rights and the net amounts. And what is net amounts? It means after all the cases, the water rights cases have been adjudicated at the structure, how much water is left. And as you can see, what it's done is it's basically a spreadsheet here. And as you scroll across, you can see more information here. We've got UTM coordinates in here if you're plotting the data up in GIS. We've got some appropriation adjudication dates, priority numbers. It's a really powerful data set, especially the fact that it's updated nightly. And in fact, Water Resources is the only agency in the state that actively updates the data on a regular basis. You can also filter the data a number of different ways. You can set up filters on the side. You can sort data here and filter it here on the columns. And most importantly, you can export this data out in a number of formats, CSV files, Excel spreadsheets, and whatnot. Really easy way to kind of get at data and look at it and visualize. A couple other things we've done here on the site as well, too, and I'm just going to go back here for a second to the landing page for water, is that we've done a couple other things, too. We've actually included some mapping applications in here that are rather simple. And the one I like to show the most is the current conditions website and map here. And if we click on this, it's basically what it's going to open up is sort of a a Google Maps type interface. And we'll give it a second here to load. And it'll show the state of Colorado, and what you'll see is some hotspots around the state for data. And as you hover over some of these hotspots, what you do is you can left click on one of those, and it'll zoom you into a location. And in this case, we're kind of looking, here at the Arkansas over here, and you'll see these blue dots. And when you click on one of these blue dots, what it's going to do is it's going to give you the last reading at the gauge, and you can see here, and the amount. So for example, here, Cottonwood Creek near Buena Vista, the last reading was at 11:30 this morning, and it's showing you a stage and an amount in CFS. And you also see here that we also have a link here to basically DWR's website. We'll give you a little more information about the gauge. And you can also view details, and you can click. So we basically built a lot of extra links in here to kind of get you even to dive more into the data if you really want to. Along those lines, we do have a number of different data sets. We've got calls information, we've got well applications, we've got dam safety information, wells with water level. We've got a number of different tabs here, and plus we've made reference to a lot of our GIS data sets we have as well. Very powerful tool. Not too many people know that we've had this out there. We've actually stood this up probably over 2 years ago. Very easy to use, and it has a lot of power to it. Well, with that, I'd like to show you another thing. We don't just disseminate our data in this format. We also build a lot of GIS data as well too that we serve up on the site. It's basically a replication of this data that we just saw in tabular format. And so the way I normally go to the CDSS site is I just type in CDSS into my Google browser, and usually we're right at the top. The CDSS, like Andy had said, has been around for quite a while, and the website's been up for a number of years. And if you just click on this, it'll take you to the CDSS page landing site here. And what I'm going to talk specifically about on this page is our GIS data. And if you go over here to the GIS tab, we've organized the data in a couple different ways. First, we've got it at the high level, we've got data by category. And if you click on this, you're going to get some simple shape files of administrative boundaries up here, for example, designated basins, division boundaries, district boundaries, produced water non-tributary boundaries that relates to oil and gas. But most importantly, down here, we have hydro-based point data. So a lot of those data sets you saw in the Colorado Information Marketplace are replicated here as shapefile downloads. However, we are currently only updating these monthly right now. In the future, we will be updating these nightly as well. So if you needed to get the data we just saw in the Colorado Information Marketplace as a shapefile for plotting in any sort of GIS, you can download these shapefiles, and they come with basically the same information you would find on the Information Marketplace. We've also got some other information here related to our irrigated lands efforts. We've got another data set down here called the Source Water Route Framework, which is basically a data set of all the waters in Colorado that we have associated water rights with. They have unique identifiers that relate back to the identifiers we have in some of our other data sets as well, basically our water rights data sets. And if you go through some of these divisional tabs, and they're broken out by the different water divisions in Colorado, which relate to the main stems of the rivers that are in them. For example, Division 1 is the South Platte, Division 2 is the Arkansas. Some of these DSSs are built out a little bit more than in some bases than others. For example, the South Platte, we have irrigated lands going all the way back to 1956, and we're getting ready to release a 2015 data set very shortly. In fact, here in the next few months, we'll have complete coverage for the state for 2010 and 2015 for irrigated lands. But as you can see up here, we have a number of different data sets that relate back to when the SPDSS was in development. We have a lot of groundwater data, for example, related to the South Platte. So I just wanted to highlight that. A couple of these, you'll find different flavors of data in each division, depending on how the DSS was built out and what was important to the DSS at the time. We're always expanding the use of the DSS and the data sets that we build and serve up on this site. And with that, though, I'd like to, the final thing I'm going to talk about and spend a little more time on more than anything is what do we do with this data and how do we show it in our map viewer? So DWR has launched, and if you can actually go to our home page to begin with here, water.state.co.us, you'll find in the lower left-hand corner here, Data and Mapping Tools, and under this you'll find a link that says New DWR Map Viewers. And if I click that, you're going to land on our page for our Dwr Map Viewers. Now, what we've done here is we've broken our map viewers into about 4 sort of what we call sort of workflow type of viewers. We've got one that's just for well permit research. It has data sets that relate more to that. There'll be some duplicity between the map viewers as far as the different data layers you have, but we try to make them sort of give them a certain flavor. We've also got a water rights research viewer that has historical aerial imagery. And you've also got a hydro-based data viewer, which has a lot of those hydro-based data sets. We've got a water supply data viewer, which is mostly for the front range. It has a lot of Denver Basin information. We've got a full DWR map viewer that has almost probably going on 200 layers in it. It runs very slow. So if you have some patience, you can look at that one. But if you're doing simple mapping applications or whatnot, one of these other lighter viewers might work very well. We also have a link here to some Google sheets that have what layer is in each one of the map viewers. And if you click on these, you'll see that it brings up a couple different tabs usually here across the bottom here, but maybe I'm not seeing them. Here they go. So for example, with the well permit research viewer, you have these data sets. If I was to click on the hydro-based data viewer tab, we'll have these data sets. It's just kind of a way of getting at and showing what's in each viewer, so you don't have to open up every one of them. And then at the bottom, we have an FAQ sheet, which is just kind of an online Google Doc that kind of shows if you have a question about something, we might have an answer in there. But most importantly, DWR has launched a YouTube channel with some simple training videos in here that show for how do I search for a well by permit number, for example. And they're all about 2 minutes long, and I narrate the videos and basically will walk you through some simple things. And in order to complete some tasks, perhaps, you might have to watch a couple videos. I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. But just to show you what we've done with the map viewers themselves, I'm going to open up the hydro-based data viewer, and I've already opened it up here in another tab. What you should see when you first open the map viewer is a map of the counties in Colorado. The map viewer is sort of organized here. We've got your data layers over here on the left-hand side. As you scroll down, you have a couple different base maps to choose from, a topography-based map, an imagery-based map. A lot of these are very Google-based map-like. And we've also got the USGS topography map that's kind of a scalable topography map that runs from a shaded relief, and if you zoom in quite a bit, it'll turn on the 1 to 24K or the 1 to 100K or 250K topo maps from the USGS. But what I like to show most importantly with this map is the search box we have in the upper right-hand window. This search box is kind of a way to Google our data. You can search an applicant name for a well permit. You can search a water rights case. You could search a stream name. You could search a well permit number. You could search a WDID, what we consider to be our unique identifier for water right, structures with water rights in Colorado. It's our water district ID. You can search, this is also our address search, for example. So if you needed to search for data around a specific address, you could type in an address. For example, I can type in the address where we're sitting right now, 1313 Sherman Street, Denver, Colorado. And you got to include city and state because this address search does run nationwide. And in most cases, the best answer is usually at the top of the list. And if you click that, it'll zoom you into the location that we're sitting right now. So example, there's a little gold dot down here, and if I zoom in just a little bit farther here, oops, I identified something there. The gold dot would have been right in front of the building we're sitting at. But like I mentioned before, this also is a very powerful search tool for different types of data. So for example, we permit well applications in the state, last name first, for example. I could type in Brown Chris into the search box, for example, and it's going to start returning some results here that relate, because it's basically sort of a kind of a Google search in a lot of ways, and brings in other things from, you know, you can see in there it says Brown, Texas, and cities and states and whatnot. But most importantly, you'll see to start to show flags in Colorado. And what that has returned is basically, you'll see if I scroll this list down here a little bit, you'll see it's actually returned records here for well applications. Here's Chris Brown or Christine Brown, Chris and Sandy Brown. And as I click on one of these results here, it's going to zoom me into the location of that result and put a gold dot on the map. Now, what's interesting mostly about this is that I haven't turned on any data layers yet. I'm already searching data in the map viewer without even really turning on a layer. You'll also see here that we've included hyperlinks in here that relate to a lot of the data sets, and almost all of our data sets, especially the hydro-based data sets, will have these hyperlinks. So for example, I could click on this link to our well permit search application. It'll bring up some information about this well permit. I can see that it's got a certain receipt number here, the permit number. I can scroll down here and see some depth information about it, when the well was constructed. But really, it's nice and important here is I can click on this link here for image documents. And what it's going to do is it's going to link to our imaging system for documents here. And I can open up the original well permit right here from the map viewer. And you'll see here I brought up the well permit. It consists of 4 pages in PDF format. And right up here, if I go up here, I can download that to my desktop and print that out if I needed to, or send it to a client. Maybe who's looking for that well permit. Obviously, every browser works with a little bit different. I happen to use Google Chrome for this. Internet Explorer may work slightly different as far as how it downloads files, but that's what it does. Now back to the map viewer. I'm also going to turn on some layers here as well. So I'm going to zoom back to the state level here first, and I'm going to scroll back up here to the top, and I'm going to turn on Structure Admin to create structures with water rights in the state. Now you'll notice when I first turn on that layer, nothing shows up, right? It's because we set some scale dependencies on the data so we don't overload the server when we're turning on data. And if I scroll in here a little bit, at about 6 km or 4 miles here on the bottom, you'll start to see these sort of like red squares appear on the map, and those are basically all of our structures in the state that have water rights. Now, if I know something about a structure or whatnot, say I know the water district ID for it or something else, I could type this into the box up here. So for example, 0100501 is what, they're all 7-digit strings. I'll hit enter on that, and it's going to start searching. And what it's brought up is it's brought up the Empire Canal, or the Empire Ditch actually. And so I'm going to click on the Empire Ditch here, the record for that, and it's going to put a gold dot here, and I could zoom in a little bit closer, and I can see that we've got the Empire Ditch here. I could actually close this search and go back to my original search and show you that it's basically showed a couple of structures here around the Empire Ditch. But what you can do here is once you're in the map and you have some data turned on, you can left click on any one of these boxes, and what we've got turned on by default is something called map tips. And so anytime you left click on anything on the screen, the active map layers are going to return some information here on the map. So for example, I have counties on, and they're sort of the bigger layer on top. But if I tab to the next record, you're going to see I pulled up basically some information about a structure and a pump here. Again, if I hit view additional details here, you're going to be brought up to a hyperlink, and you've got some other information. You've got a kind of a synopsis up here of what's going on with the structure. But as you scroll down, you're going to get some more information about this structure, for example. Again, there's another hyperlink that takes us to the CDSS pages, which I'll show you in a minute. So just to remind you that this box up here is very powerful. You can return all types of data in this box, and it makes it easy to kind of find data and just kind of orient yourself with the map. You can also use the Identify tool to actually query data on the map, and you can basically draw a box around some data and return results in your results window on the left-hand panel here as well. You can also, when you've got this data in the left-hand panel, you can also turn the data into a table, which basically docks the data at the bottom of the map. And it's more of a familiar form here of a spreadsheet format. And you can scroll across here and kind of look at the data in this format as well. Again, all this data has all this information here as far as UTM coordinates if you need them, what a locational accuracy is an active historic structure, what's going on with that, for example. And plus right here we like to call this, this is kind of hidden, so I'm going to do is dock this over here just to move out of the way here a little bit. Also, when you go underneath this, we call this the stack of pancakes, the hamburger. It's called the Panel Actions menu, which really isn't as a nice as name as hamburger, I suppose. But you can also export this out, this data right now that you have selected or identified. You can export that as a CSV file, an Excel spreadsheet, or a shapefile as well. I'm going to dock this back up here on the side now, back up to the list on the side. Also, some of the more powerful things we have here in this interface, we have another Quick Tools button. We have a number of different ways to zoom yourself to different things in the map. We zoom to permit numbers, zoom to a section, zoom to UTM coordinates, zoom to lat long coordinates. We have our PLSS locator as well. Now, what's nice about the PLSS locator is it does a couple different things for us. And so I could enter UTM locations, I could enter PLSS quarters, I could enter PLSS distances. I'm just going to pick a location on the map and get some information related to locational information about the point I picked here. So I'm going to click Next. I'm going to click this button here, and I'm going to capture some geometry here on the screen. I'm going to click Next again. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me a little information about this location once it's done running here, for example. Give it a second here. Now it's going to tell me basically, well, I clicked on section 24 of this township and range, and the area I actually clicked in. I'll turn actually the PLSS layer on here. And you'll see I'm in section 24, and I'm in the southwest. I'm in the northeast of the southwest. That's where it plotted. I've got UTM coordinates here in zone 13. If we're on the western slope, it also gives you zone 12 coordinates, different latitudes and longitudes. But it gives you some important boundary information here as well. We're in Division 1, District 1, Weld County. We're outside of any management districts or designated basins. We're inside the Denver Basin, though, and we're in this HUC 10 code if you're looking for some watershed information. Some other things I'd like to show you here, too, is you can print a map here using this interface here. Basically, you can set a scale for the map. If you click this print button, it'll start to prepare a file. Again, this works differently with different browsers. In Chrome, it should just open my map up here in a second. When I click Open File, it'll just open up another browser window with my map in it. It comes with a nice title block around it. I could have put a grid and graticule if I wanted to. I could have set a standardized scale if I wanted. It gives you a timestamp, what active layers I had turned on in the legend, for example. I'll go back here and close this. You can also export a map. It's like taking a screenshot of your screen. We do have a share map function here right now. We're working on that. It doesn't function the way it should, but we're going to get it to work right here soon. And to just kind of wrap up here a little bit here, because I want to show just a couple more things here. We've got some other things on here. You can annotate your map using the draw toolbar. We've got a number of different measurement tools here as well. You can measure distances and areas. We've got some advanced measurement tools in here, which give you just some more ways to measure things. You can measure some center pivots for center pivot irrigation. You can use a circle tool for that. We've got some freehand lines if you wanted to quickly measure a reach of stream, for example. We've also got some query tools on here as well. Query and filter basically filter data on the map or query data, so you can basically choose a data set and set certain parameters. Say, for example, wells that pump at a certain GPM, or filter data on the map that, structures of a certain use, where they use for irrigation or they use for domestic use. What I'd like to show you a little bit more is how we highlight some of the structures here and how we show some of the data and how we have some more links to some of our other sites. So I'm going to turn on stream gauges here to begin with here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. Surface water current conditions to show you how we link some of this data on the map a little bit more. And also you'll see here too, we got different colors here for the gauges and whatnot. You'll see here, these gauges are broken out, purple or by stream. We got reservoir gauges, diversion gauges. I'm going to zoom in here to one of our stream gauges here and click on it and show you we've got some more links in the map. I'm going to turn off admin boundaries and PLSS here so I get a sort of a clean selection. Again, when you click on this, the map tips, it's going to bring up some basic information about this. And kind of like what we saw on the SIM site, we've got links built in here. I can open this up, and it's going to take you to our current conditions website. And you can see what the gauge has been doing over time, and plus it's going to give you the most recent value here just at 11:45 this morning. Also, we've got links built into our structures admin decree as well. And again, if I zoom over here, and I was kind of around the Empire Canal over here earlier, I'm going to kind of just zoom over here and find something else to click on. Let's click on this guy here and see what we get here. Okay, we're going to go look at something. For example, I clicked on the Patterson ditch here, and again, it gives you some simple information. But if I go to view additional details again, you can see we got some detailed information about the Patterson ditch. But most importantly, if I click on this hyperlink here, it's going to take you to our CDSS page about the Patterson ditch. So you can see how we've built a lot of this interconnectivity around here. We've gone from the SIM site to the CDSS page. Now we've gone from the map viewer back to the CDSS page. And for example, if I want to get some more information about the Patterson ditch, I can highlight this row and click Structure Summary. And I can say, yes, I want to know all this information about the structure. And I'll click the summary here. And it's going to open up yet another web page here. And I'll maximize this. And this is the structure summary for this ditch. So for example, you can see that it's got a number of different transactions under the water rights transactions here. This is that net amounts column that we saw in the Color Information Marketplace too. And you'll see here too that we've got some irrigated lands and some irrigated areas associated with the Patterson ditch through time. For example, here we've got some data from our 2010 irrigated lands information associated with the Patterson ditch. And as you scroll down, we'll even break that out for you by year and crop type as well. Some very powerful information here from the CDSS page related to structures in Colorado and ditches and whatnot. These CDSS pages are in the process of actually being redone as we speak right now. And just to kind of wrap up here for my presentation, and John Rogers is going to go next, is that we've built in links on the CDSS site to the map viewer. They're on the DWR's webpage where I showed you as well. We are in the process of upgrading our map viewer right now. We're going to be launching a new map viewer probably November of this year. It'll have the same look and feel, but you'll have some more powerful tools. And in fact, we'll have a customizable version of the map viewer. You'll be able to customize on your own from a data catalog of those almost 200 layers I spoke about before. And you'll find some increased functionality and the tools will be even more usable. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Rogers, and he's going to give us some information about kind of where we're going with some of the CDSS information.
Awesome. All right, hi everyone. This is John. Let me switch over here. So I get the pleasure of introducing you today to our new and improved CDSS online data tools. So first, by way of context, right, these are the existing tools that are out there. They've been out there a long time, as many of you know and have used. And, it's the same data. I mean, all this tools hit HydroBase, all the new pages hit HydroBase. So there's nothing wrong with these tools that we've had out here and are still here. But, when you look at them, you can see they're probably a little dated. They're due for an upgrade, and they certainly don't have the functionality of the stuff that we're gonna roll out. So this is the link that we've shared with you all. We're referring to it as our beta homepage. Hopefully everybody did get that. We showed some stuff on screen here, and then also I know Caitlin emailed and made available some links. And so in addition to the slides, we've got a page with all these links. And that particular page is the only place you'd find this beta link. This is not otherwise publicly or publicized as yet. So the deal with this is we have so far rebuilt more specifically, our very talented OIT development team partners under the direction of Doug Stenzel have so far rebuilt administrative calls and groundwater. So now we're going to go through this transition process where we'll complete the upgrade on the rest of the data sets, we expect by the end of this calendar year, and then we'll roll those out. And again, we'll transition these to the final true home page will probably look somewhere between, this and this, and that's yet to be seen. So, and I should mention that we wanted to give CFWE the scoop on this. So today is literally the very first public unveiling of these tools. And so that makes you all our very first beta users. And we really do welcome your input and your feedback as part of this process, and not just for the stuff we can see today, but the rest of the stuff that comes out. So we're excited about that. And I'll I'll say more in a second about how you can give some of that feedback. But let's just step in and step around and look at what we got. And again, you can look forward to changes from here. So the first thing I've clicked on is simply our active calls page. These are all, we currently have 112 active calls in the state of Colorado. But you may come in and you say, oops, I didn't mean active calls. I want to know about calls that are not only still active, but have also been historical calls that have been released. So I changed over. Now we're looking at historical calls, and I say, well, let me know all the calls in the last year. So I'll change my date range and search, and we'll wait just a second. It runs pretty fast. It will get faster as we complete our deployment. And we see down here there are 1,717 calls that have occurred statewide during this time period. And we say, well, let's take a look at those. And you can click here and sort, and you realize, oh, there's some upstream junior calls and also authorized diversions. Well, I don't want those. I really just want calls. So I'll modify my search criteria and run it again. And now we'll notice that instead of 1,717, we have 1,625 actual calls. And then we say, oh, actually, I really just meant, say, in the Colorado District 5, Division 5. And so that gives you an idea, right? I'm just searching and clicking and running, and here comes back the data set. So let's pause here and look at the page. Again, familiar stuff. I know all of you know what the call is, and the data set is relatively straightforward, perhaps. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on this page. So small detail to notice on the desktop environment is the ability to, these things are accordions, and you'll start to get a feel for the ones that expand and collapse. And not much, and the point of those is mobile functionality. I probably won't have time or show that off now, but the development team really knocked this out of the park in terms of its mobile capability. So all this stuff is going to be, available on those on tablets and phones and so on for that kind of use. So here we are looking at admin calls. You've got collapse capabilities. Another thing to notice is the data grid itself. 3 dots has, some typical and also very advanced, table functions. You can sort these, you can rearrange, you can hide columns, you can filter. In more complicated data sets, there's a column lock capability you can play around with in groundwater. Another feature to appreciate is if you just hover over most anything, you'll get a pop-up definition. So the table headers, for example, have pop-up definitions. And when you look at detailed reports, which we'll go into, most any items that might be a jargon have a definition to them. And again, the table itself has lots of functionality. Up on our menu bar here, we've got export and help, which I'll defer till we're looking at groundwater. But the bottom line is you can pull all this data down, either as CSV or as PDF, depending on what you're looking at. And within help is where you can get feedback to us, by the way. But again, just sort of looking around the rest of the page, here's a link out to the information marketplace. This link here, I'll venture into it for a second. I think we're doing okay on time. Those of you who know what REST services are will appreciate the significance of these. We've got I won't try to demo it, in fact, but once again, the web services fundamentally represent a means by which to access this data programmatically. So we're delivering with these data sets RESTful web services, and what they mean is you can tuck that into, say, a spreadsheet or another program that you use that calls upon this data and makes, water accounting type decisions, for example. And those REST services can feed the data up real time. And there's instruction here as to how to access those. And so again, those are new and improved, and we're pretty excited about those. They work really well, they're modern. And again, each of these data sets, as we roll them out, will convey the data not only on screen as you see here, but as part of those web services. So, looking around here, let's click on our map. Same deal, hotspots, we're using the Google map, you can zoom in. And so here's all the calls in this area. If you hover, you can get some detail about it. This is a neat gadget the dev team built for us where we can assign our own labels fundamentally. You have the ability to say, well, I not only want to see those points, but I kind of like to know what's their relative priority to mine, for example. So you can pick from the available data fields and you can label your points as such. And it gets a little crowded perhaps, but that's why we give you the control to do that as is useful to you. And you can probably imagine, you know, you start thinking about groundwater and surface water, real-time stream flow data and things. That functionality hopefully has a lot of use to people. So that's at the search level. If we click back to our table, we notice each of these has a view item at the far left of the grid. If we look on the map, we can click on any given point and get a pop-up. In addition to that hover, right now I've clicked and here's a pop-up and here's a bunch of, you know, summary information about the call. And here again is this link. And you click these links, and a fundamental deal with the site on any of these data sets is there's basically search capability, and then there are detailed level reports. And obviously they vary depending on the data you're talking about. But in this case, I've zoomed in or I've opened up a detail report for this particular administrative call. There's the details. There's another map for convenience. Oh, good. And this particular one has associated upstream calls. So the next example I'll step us into is an example of some more detailed analysis that, again, Doug and team put together and or sort of dreamed up and put together. And these are canned analyses, and we'll see a lot more of these with the surface water stuff of things that we think would hopefully prove useful to you. So I've told the system I want to look for anything in the South Platte that starts with Empire. This is my ditch of interest. And what you see here are the different individual water rights associated with that structure. I can click on one of those individual water rights. It has a time period I could control. In fact, I'll open this up a little bit so we get some better results. And run our priority analysis. And this canned analysis functionality yields back, oh good, I got a decent one. This shows the breakdown of the priority status of that individual water right during that particular period of time. So there's the summary statement right there. And here's the data in all of its glory. And an individual who owns that water right can capture from this, where were they on the river in terms of priority at any given time of year in the past, obviously. So that's pretty exciting. Again, it's an example of a lot more things like that to come. But we have both a structure call analysis and a water source level call analysis that have been canned up and delivered. So again, I invite you to explore all this stuff. Moving right along, I'll click on groundwater levels. And we spun up groundwater levels first, or side by side with admin calls among all of our time series data. One, because we love our geologists so much. And two, because what this enabled us to do was to work through all the different functionality of the different time series data sets we're going to bring back. We figured out our grid, we figured out our graphs, we figured out our report capabilities and all the rest. Once again, web services. So I've conducted a search here within Camp Creek. You can, again, play around with these. There's a lot of good search capability within this, which, again, is replicated in the REST services. And you can assign these kind of criteria within your REST service calls. Not all of them. Some more you get on screen kind of logically. The idea is you pull the data down and presumably may do additional assessment with it as usual. But you may say, oh, I only want to see wells that have had records since the year 2010 or something. And you could use these search criteria to accomplish that. Once again, you bring back your resulting data set. You can view it on a map. Let's just do that real quick. How's time? In this case, we'll say, hey, why don't you show me the water level elevation for these wells? And there they are. So we'll jump into, let's go ahead and look at one of these groundwater details just to kind of keep clicking around. And then we'll focus in on a couple more functionalities. So, let me pick a better well. There's, depends on what you consider fun, I guess. But it's sometimes challenging to find groundwater data that looks terribly exciting. But I think this is about as exciting as groundwater level data typically gets. See, it's moving around a little. But either way, this is the data. And this particular graph is kind of neat because, logically, the depth to the water and the elevation of the water are, in fact, the same line. So what we've done under the direction of the geology team is say, hey, start these graphs at 0 and make the maximum depth by definition the depth of the well. If you're a geologist, that's a cool way to look at groundwater data. If you felt like printing this, for example, you could come in here and say, oh, let me give it its more formal name. You can mess around with the axis min-max values if you felt like it. And so again, it's a graph for you to control, and the reason we built that in is the notion that folks might want to be able to capture that, which is a segue to the export button, and I think the last kind of real major thing I'm going to touch on. So export varies depending on the data set you're working in. If we were looking at admin calls, it'd just be a button that says there's 150 calls in your data set, go. In this case of the groundwater details report, I can generate a PDF report of that detail, of that individual well detail report. I can open and save an image of the graph as I've just spun it up. And you can push out the time series data associated with that particular well. And then coming back to this level, open export here. And again, it conveys, there's distinct aspects to the export. And hopefully hopefully we've hit the mark on what's useful to folks. And what it amounts to, as typically with time series data, you may only want the well list, the metadata, so to speak, for those wells, or surface stations, as the case may be. Or you may want all that time series data behind all of those wells. And likewise, you can pull down PDF reports and the groundwater summary reports that the hydrogeologist makes. So those are aspects of export, and again, they'll vary, and I encourage you guys to explore those. I guess the last thing I'll touch on is our help button. And this is where the beta aspect of the site probably shows a little bit. You know, the user guide, I think it's a page long right now, but there is in there a link to a Google form, which is basically a feedback method, a venue. You can provide as many comments as you would like inside the form in that user guide, and we look forward to your input. That's the quick and dirty. Any one of us could have kept talking for a while, but we can pause now. I know, Caitlin, you wanted to leave some time for questions.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a few questions already. First, I'll remind everyone that if you didn't receive that handbook handout in the email I sent before the webinar, there should be a link in the handouts button in your GoToWebinar panel on the side of the screen. So you can find the handout there and the link to this beta site that John has been talking about. Also, if you joined the webinar a little late, you can pose questions in the questions section of the GoToWebinar panel. So we have a few questions to begin with, and maybe we'll have more coming in. The first one is from Dan Gollin, and he asked this during Chris's presentation, but maybe a few of you can answer. So the question is, are there GIS files for cone of depression or cylinders of appropriation?
We do have that data available. And this is Chris Brown. If you were to go to our one of our map viewers, basically, it's going to be, it's not cone of depression, but we do have what we call our presumption well polygons in some of those areas we consider to be encumbered by a well application. If you were to go to, let me just open up my tab here. Here we go. If you go back to the map viewer page, and if you were to look at the water supply data viewer, for example, some of this data is kind of broken up because we used to collect our, the old school way of doing GIS was with Mylar maps, right? And since about 10 years ago, we started to actually heads-up digitize different types of, we call presumption well polygons, pre-213 cylinders, all kinds of sort of groundwater, mostly related data sets that I think this is what the question is getting at. So if you were to open the water supply data viewer, there's a tab in there called GIS admin data set. And in there, you can turn on the different types of well polygons that we have. And as well, you can turn on the Mylar, the old Mylar maps where some of the data exists as well. So yes, we do have some of that data, just not maybe potentially cone of depression data.
Great, thanks. So next we have a question from Todd Denning. He asked, this was also during Chris's talk, is there a way to view water level trends month to month or year to year? If so, what is the confidence in this data? How often is it taken? How often is it reported?
Well, that's more of a question for John, really. You got to.
Yeah.
In the map viewer, you can basically get to the water level data. There'll be a link that will take you to what John just demoed as far as the water level data. So yes, there is a way to do that.
Yeah. Yep. And again, you know, that the data that we're expressing out here, well, to repeat some stuff as we've established, right? You can hit a lot of this stuff on Map Viewer. You may find it on SIM. You can access it through the CDSS homepage and the DWR homepages. And this tool set here that I've demoed is another resource. And yeah, I guess part of the trick is figuring out which one serves your purposes best. But yep, in the particular case of groundwater levels, that happens to be what we're demonstrating here. And you can get the detail on that. And so of course you can visualize it as a graph, and you can view it on your page here, and then you can export it and do what you will. Yeah, from the data loggers. Yeah, Andy's just pointing out, I mean, I think just in terms of the nature of the groundwater level data, this comes in both by virtue of hydrogeologists going out there and measuring wells, and other individuals, well owners, sending that, and then also these automated data loggers that feed the system into Hydrobase real time, and we push it back out. Is that what you're? Yeah. What else?
All right, so one last question from Todd Denning. He asked, if you have well data, why is surface to water level preferred over saturated depth above intake?
Oh, good one. I don't know. Andy?
Say that again.
Say that again. The phone's breaking up a little.
Repeat that, Caitlin.
Yeah, the question was, if you have well data, why is surface to water level preferred over saturated depth above intake?
You can defer.
Well, it's only preferred for the data presentation for, again, looking at regional trends. Certainly, if you have a well, you want to know how much saturated thickness you have above the intake. And you could find that information by going into the individual well log. But yeah, we're presenting it more looking at a regional nature and not looking at an individual well. But you could do that.
All right.
If you guys can stew on more questions, if we got a minute to spare, I will go ahead and. How are we doing, Caitlin? Do you have more questions lined up right now?
No more questions yet. I'll let you know as they come in. But we do have a few minutes if you have more to share.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and I'll take a minute to brag on the good work our development team has done. So I don't know if folks know about this. Any website you work on or know of, you can right click once it catches up here. Anyway, you can go into this inspection mode and simulate a mobile environment essentially. Or more importantly, you may be out in the field with your cell phone and you actually need this data. And, you know, of course, it's arguable whether somebody needs, you know, what particular data set you're going to need out in the field, but we've assumed basically you might. And we're delivering all of these new CDSS pages in such a way as to be mobile friendly. They don't, as yet, utilize the GPS on a phone, right? They're not mobile, sort of knowledgeable, but they're mobile friendly. They're built on an environment, on a platform that hopefully will accommodate folks with phones or our water commissioners out there with tablets and all the different folks and their different devices. And so that's part of what we're excited about in the new architecture there.
And just to add on to what John is talking about, this is Chris again. The map viewer also works in a mobile format too as well. You can bring that into your cell phone. There's a kind of a bullseye when you open up the map viewer. It's like find your location, it'll find where you're at, and then you can tab over and start turning on some layers and doing some basic stuff right out there in the field as long as you have a good data signal. We will add some links to the DWR homepage. It makes it a little bit easier to access the map viewer from the website. Because currently right now, if you have fat thumbs like me, it's a little hard to actually click on the link. But we just wanted to make that known that you can use the map viewer in a mobile format as well. I got a question for you, John. What pages are we doing entirely? What new pages are we going to be doing on the CDSS site that in its entirety? When we build this thing out, what are we going to have as far as new pages?
That's a good question. Thanks for the setup. I think I might have had a note to touch on that. The short answer is everything. well, sucks. Of course, I had to do that. The short answer is that we will rebuild in we're going to redeliver all these data sets in the new platform. Hang on half a second. Let me fix my. There it is at the top. Okay. Yep. Site still works. Yeah. The short answer is we're going to deliver all this. I think we're going to end up reviewing some data. There's, other data here, ag and livestock. I mean, that one in particular is not immediate on our radar, but all the rest of the stuff, really, particularly surface water, structures, stream flow stuff, that's on the immediate radar. And now that we've accomplished the functionality, right, the platform and all that, and our dev team is cooking with gas, we have these things already underway. Water rights will be the next one that rolls out. And again, as kind of our beta users, we look forward to y'all tracking along with that. So actually, I did have two more things. Thanks for the reminder. One is a general comment that in addition to these individual data sets, we're going to deliver a tool that's kind of just a time series viewer, we're calling it. And the idea is you might want to look at groundwater next to rainwater, or you might want to look at surface flow next to rainwater. And you can think of a lot of other good examples. But if it's data if it's time series data that we have in HydroBase, we're going to try to allow you to put it all together in a single graph and a single table and that kind of thing. And it's kind of an open-ended time series data viewer tool. So that's an important comment. And that would be kind of next generation. That would be probably early in 2018. And then the last comment I meant to touch, maybe I did. I started already. Go to the help, hit the user guide. There's not necessarily much guidance yet, but that is how you provide feedback. And another thing within help, it's not built yet, but come back like Google, you'll see things evolve in time. And there'll be an ability for y'all, if you want to sign up and kind of join a subscription list. And then as we do roll out new stuff, you'll get an email that says, hey, heads up, come check out the new stuff. So that's the game plan.
Nice.
So
we have a few more questions, if you guys are up to answer them.
Sure.
So Steve Mailers asked, how would a user know which application to use to find data? By type of workflow, by user experience? Are they linked to leverage strengths?
Good one.
I guess it's how comfortable you feel with do you feel like starting with a map? Do you feel like starting with a spreadsheet? Do you feel like using these online tools that John has been demoing, which kind of bring in the best of both worlds? It really that's why we've kind of disseminated the data the way we have. It's kind of, we've given you enough ways to get at the data that you can pretty much hang yourself any way you want on data. You could work in a spreadsheet, a map, or both.
Yeah.
We want to make it easy for the user, not really tie them down to one way or the other. I would add that certainly if you just want to look in a certain geographic area for different data, the map viewer makes the most sense. But if you already know you're going to look for the Empire Canal and data on it, then you should just go straight. You could just go straight through the online tools. And for diversion structures, for example, or water rights to find that information. Although the map viewer would be a way to show all of it in one place. Right, and the Colorado Information Marketplace, for the most part, is really kind of a bulk data exporter. If you're really looking for, I want all the wells in a certain county that are active, for example, or we think to be constructed wells, that would be the place to go for information like that. If you're looking for information on the macro level, the SIM site is very useful. If you're going to try to drill down into the data a bit more, the map viewer or the CSS pages are most appropriate.
All right, thanks. So we're about out of time, but we do have two more questions if you guys have time to stick around and answer them.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is from Todd Denning again. He asked, are you looking at ways to present information for aquifer storage and recharge that would support mound tracking and dominion and control issues? I hear at DWR meetings on this subject.
Well, the HydroBase, so first of all, is for raw data, not derived or calculated or estimated. So the basic answer is we wouldn't have that in HydroBase. Some of the modeling tools may get at those, like the alluvial groundwater model we built for the South Platte could be used to look at that. And it's something I think the hydrogeological group here at DWR, though, would be interested in hearing that comment and how we might be able to address that.
Yeah. I mean, a general comment is that, the door's open to ideas. As we build these things out, we've got a fantastic platform, and the idea is to expand it as is useful, but that's a general comment. I'm not a geologist. What else you got?
All right, so last question from Dan Gollin again. Where do you get the irrigated acreage data from to generate your shapefiles?
Well, that's a good question. This is Chris Brown again. So we've been generating irrigated lands data from Division Water Resource and the CWCB for a number of years. Like I said before, this is our first time. We'll shortly have 2010, 2015 with statewide coverage. What we do is, for our irrigated lands data, what we've done in a lot of cases is that we've developed what we call a master coverage. We've read decrees, well permits, and whatnot, and tried to map what we consider to be place of use to our best of our ability. And using that as a template, we stamp out our temporal data sets, and we use Landsat imagery in an NDVI stack. Basically, NDVI is a measure of greenness. And since we've identified areas that can be irrigated, we're able to basically analyze the level of greenness to give us an idea whether that parcel was irrigated or not at an individual parcel level. And then we use the USDA's Agricultural Statistics Service cropland data layer, which is basically a GIS raster layer of identified crops nationwide, and we extract that data into our parcels as well and do some analysis on them. So we come away basically with a GIS polygon that says how is it being irrigated, a center pivot sprinkler, flood irrigated, or whatnot. What are the irrigating structures on that? We track that as well, surface water and groundwater through our water district ID. And then what was the crop type in the acres? And that's what ultimately goes into our consumptive use model that Andy brought up in the beginning of our state CU application. And all that data goes into Hydrobase and all gets pulled out by our different tools.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys. A lot of...
You're going to say thanks.
Yeah, Caitlin, let me just add one thing.
Yeah.
We've had some examples talking about the CDSS site and the DWR site, and just want to make it clear to those that all of this can be all these tools can be gotten to from either site. So you don't have to go to one or the other, just whatever the user is familiar with and used to using. But there will be a link on the DSS site to some of the DWR tools, for example. So just want to make that clear.
Cool.
Good, yeah.
And Caitlin, this is John, and I would close out. We want to thank you guys, the CFWE, for putting this together, and everybody who got online. And again, we look forward to the communication. You all out there asking these questions and using these tools are, a key component, right? That's what they're for. So we really appreciate this dialogue.
Yeah, thanks, John, and Andy and Chris for your time and expertise and sharing with everyone. And thanks for all the participants for being here and asking good questions. You guys should receive a few survey questions as the webinar ends and you sign out. So please share your feedback and feel free to be in touch with any of us to ask questions or share feedback on anything. So that's it. Thank you all, and this concludes our broadcast.
Awesome. Bye all. Thanks.